Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin, and for today's video I'm going to talk to you about some series that I want to finish in the year of 2020. I do this thing a lot where I start a new series because a new series, it sounds pretty fun. I love the first book in the series most of the time because you're getting introduced to a new world, new characters, and things like that. And then I just don't really finish them in a timely fashion. I've come to realize that when it comes for me starting or even completing a series, that it's the best for me to kind of read them one after another, especially if I have to wait like a year for the next book to come out, because sometimes I don't remember a lot of the things that happen in a book. I don't remember like the key important parts, and so I just get discouraged from reading or even finishing a series even if I really want to. For me, I decided that this year is one of the years that I do really want to try to finish up a lot of the series that I have started, because there's just something so satisfying about being able to finish a series and then just have like the completed series on your shelf. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the series that I would like to finish this year. They're not in any particular order, and a lot of these are probably really bad that I haven't finished them, but like I said, I have a problem when it comes to finishing series. This year I have also decided that when it comes to finishing the series, that I'm going to try to reread the series as well. I want to do this so I can get reintroduced to the world and the characters and kind of remember all of the key details that have happened, because a lot of times, like I said, I don't really remember a lot of the things that happened in the first or second book in the series. This is probably going to suck because a lot of these are fantasy, so because they're fantasy, they're bigger books and they hold a lot of information, but I think that's why it's going to be important for me to do that, because if I just try to go into the 5th book of the series, then I'm not going to really remember too much. But I am also excited because some of these series are my favorite series, so I'm not going to be too mad with rereading them. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into the series that I would like to finish in the year of 2020. So I'm going to start with the one that I know has been on my shelf the longest, and that is the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. So when it comes to the Lunar Chronicles, I got up to book 3, which was Cress. I do have Ferris, which is the novella between Cress and Winter, so I do only have one book to go. So this will probably be, out of all of them, the shortest one, I believe, and also probably the easiest, because this isn't as a heavy material or a world as some of the other ones are. So if you don't know the Lunar Chronicles series, the first book is Cinder, and this is a sci-fi fantasy realm, basically a retelling of a lot of characters that we have known. So the first one is Cinder, which obviously Cinderella, except Cinder is a android rather than a human. This takes place around, I can't remember how far in the future it is, but it takes place in a country, if I remember correctly. I think it's the country of New Beijing, and during this time there is a really deadly plague that is killing most of the population. Cinder, like I said, is an android. More specifically, she is a cyborg as well as a mechanic, and she is considered a second-class citizen, so she is not highly ranked in this world of New Beijing. She, just like Cinderella, has 2 evil stepsisters and a very evil stepmother. In this book, she finds herself getting her path crossed with Prince Kai. She finds herself in the center of attention, which is something she doesn't like and is not accustomed to, and so through this we just kind of go through this whirlwind kind of cyber chase, if you will. I read the series in high school, and the last one, Winter, came out in 2015, which was the year I graduated, so it's going to be really weird kind of re-getting introduced to this series, because like I said, I read this in high school, so that was a long time ago, and I'm now a college graduate, so it's going to be fun. I'm really excited to dive back into this world because I really did enjoy it. The books may be a little bit big sometimes, but they're really fast-paced, and I never felt like there was a moment where it was pretty boring. So I'm definitely excited to re-dive into this series and finally complete it. And I only have one book left, so this should be, well, 1.5 if you count the novella. But so I'm very interested and excited to finally cross the series off of my TBR shelf. So the next series that I have is the Throne of Glass series. This is by Sarah J. Maas. I love this series so much. I can't remember really when I read this, but this series was probably one of the first kind of like high fantasies that I ever really read. Before, I never would have probably considered myself to really enjoy like super high fantasy, but this is definitely one of the books in the series that got me into one of my favorite genres now. If you do not know the series takes place in a world where there is no magic, and our main character, Selena Sardothian, she gets summoned and gets the chance to compete to become the king's champion, which is the king's personal assassin. And in there we meet a whole bunch of different people, and there's kind of, if I remember correctly, there is a pretty big love triangle, but like I said, these books are super action-packed. I really liked them. I really flew through them. This first book takes place during the whole entire tournament, if you will, where all the contestants are trying to become the king's champion, to become the king's personal assassin. And so we go through a lot of different mishaps, and basically we want Selena to win. I really enjoyed this book. I got all the way up to the 4th book, which is Queen of Shadows. This is a big boy, and it's been a while. So I'm a little nervous though because of the lengths of the books, but I do remember kind of flying through them really fast. So yes, this is the second series that I would like to finish in 2020. The next series that I would like to finish is another one of Sarah J Maas's series, and that is a Court of Thorns and Roses series. Now, I got up to book 3 in this series, which is a Court of Rings and Ruin. So this book is about a girl named Feyre, and she gets kidnapped after she is caught killing a fairy wolf kind of creature being, if you will, and basically finds out that her kidnapper is not just a beast but another fairy. And she kind of goes through this whole process and finds out that, you know, the whole fairy world is not what it seems, and she kind of just gets thrown in right off the bat with no other choice but to live the rest of her life in this world. I don't know if this book was supposed to be seen or really read as a retelling, but a lot of people say that it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I can definitely see that. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I really did enjoy this series. I remember getting really invested in the characters, and you just kind of want her to go. And I remember the 3rd book, which is A Court of Rings and Ruin, the end of it was such like a cliffhanger that I was like, I need to read the 4th book, and I just never did. My bad. I was reading other books at the time, but yeah, I have wanted to reread the series anyways, both of these series by her, because like I said, I do really enjoy them. So I am very glad that I'm going to be rereading them and kind of diving back into the world and finally being able to see where the story ends, because I have some things that I want to happen, which probably won't happen because I feel like anything that I ever want to happen in a book series never does. But yeah, I'm very excited to read this one and finally cross this one off my shelf as well. Next series that I would like to finish is the Fallen Kingdom series by Morgan Rhodes. This series has, I believe, 5 or 6 books in it. I have the first 3 on my shelf, I just never got around to it. This series follows 4 main characters, all of them which are teenagers. We have Cleo of Oranios, we have Magnus and Lucia of Limeros, and Jonas of Pelagia. The series basically begins with a whole murder that kind of puts 2 sides against each other, and it's kind of all throughout this war and everything like that. I remember, like I said, really enjoying this series. I do have the first 3 books on my shelf. There is 5, I think, 5 or 6, but I honestly don't really remember what happened in the series, so that's pretty much all I can say. But I do believe that there's also like a spin-off series going to be coming out, or maybe it already came out. I'm really bad at following up book news, but yeah, I'm really excited to cross this one off because, like I said, this is another one that's been on my TBR shelf for a really long time. The next series that I would like to complete this year is the Witchland series by Susan Dennard. This book is about a world where there are 3 empires that rule over the world, and some people are gifted with a magical ability that can basically set them apart from others. We first meet 2 of these witches that have different abilities. We first meet Sophia, I believe is how you pronounce it, and she is a truth witch who is basically be able to determine a truth from a lie. And then we have Isolit, who is a thread witch who can see the invisible ties that bind and entangle the lives around her. And basically these 2 characters want nothing but to just be able to live their lives free and not have to live for others. And it's really hard to do it at this point because there is a war that is going to happen between the Witchlands, and they meet the prince, I believe it's Prince Merrick, who is a wind witch. They go on this kind of whirlwind kind of adventure because everyone wants to get their hands on the Truth Witch, so I'm excited to kind of finally bring this series to a close as well. So last year around this time I was studying abroad in London, and I picked up these two books. The first one I picked up was one that I wanted for a while, but I waited to read it because I wanted the UK edition, and that is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is the Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn series. This is probably one of my first that I can think of like adult fantasy. All the other fantasy books that I've really read have all been like young adult fantasy, but this one was like the first real like adult fantasy, and I really enjoyed this book. This is a big hefty one, and I know that the series gets bigger and bigger, but I have wanted to read the series for so long, and I loved this book so much. So this one is definitely the one that is probably the biggest because it comes in kind of two waves or in two eras. The first kind of era is the original trilogy of Mistborn. The second era is the Wax and Wanes series, so this one is definitely the biggest one, even though they're kind of split into two kind of eras. Basically in this world, ash is constantly falling from the sky, and there's no real like life form other than people. All the plants are brown and nothing is really growing. This book is about a guy named Kelsler, and he teaches allomancy, I believe is how you pronounce it, which basically is the magic of using metals, and he teaches it to other Mistborns, specifically the urchin Vin 16. And basically throughout the series we meet a lot of other people, and we have Kelsler's kind of crew who is trying to bring color in the world by taking down the Lord Ruler and really just making the world go back to the way it was before his reign. I really liked the series. Like I said, it was really hard for me to get into it because this is really like the first like full adult like high fantasy series that I have ever read, but I feel like now that I've read the book once, it will be a lot easier for me to kind of pick up and go back into the world and pick up and soak up all of the information, because there was a lot of information getting thrown, but I liked the idea of being able to have a power where you can use different metals for different things. I thought that was really cool, and I really loved the characters and the whole dynamic of the world and kind of what happened. Yeah, I'm very excited to hopefully get through this, and this has definitely opened up adult fantasy for me, and I'm very excited because I really think I've been wanting to read the series and finish it for like a good few years, but like I said, I was waiting so I can get my hands on the UK editions because I mean, look at this. They're so beautiful. So yeah, this is another series that I would like to complete. The next series is the Nevernight series. I don't know if this is what the series is called, the Nevernight series, but this is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I believe that this is also another adult fantasy book. This one I really enjoyed. I have never read any of Jay Kristoff's single work. I've read Illuminae, which was one of his shared books with Amy Kaufman. I decided to finally pick this up because I believe it's Cass from The Little Book Owl. This is like one of her favorite series, and a lot of people truly do love the series, and so I knew that I had to pick it up and kind of see for myself. I honestly don't really remember a lot of this because I almost felt like I wasn't fully soaking up the material, and also I was really mixing up these two books together because I read them back to back. And so I wasn't really letting I believe I read this one first, so I really wasn't letting like this world and the story that happened in this book like fully soak in. I should have spread it out and read like a contemporary or a romance book in between, but I didn't, and so I honestly can't tell you what this book is about, but I do know that I really did enjoy it from what I remember of it. The only thing that I really know is what is on the back, which is it is about a girl named Mia Corvair, and she's basically gets these lessons on death. I watched a video recently that talked about this series. I can't remember who it was, but it was someone who really liked this series, and I remember they were talking about it, and there was little pieces that were coming back to my mind. So basically Mia has like, I can't remember if it's like a cat, but it's Mr. Kindly, who is like this darkness pet, and she gets taken into this school which is called a church, and that's really all I remember about it. I do remember Mr. Kindly because I was very creeped out a little bit. I was kind of creeped out when I was reading about Mr. Kindly, but I do remember liking it, but like I said, I just didn't give myself enough time to kind of like basically let the other stories soak into my head. And I'm excited to read this book and kind of get into his realm because I really did like his writing styles, so I definitely want to read more of J. Kristoff this year. So yes, I am hoping that I can finish a series as well and basically reread it. It's going to be a reread, but it's going to be a read for the first time as well because I honestly don't remember what happened in the series. So yes, that is the next book or series that I would like to complete this year. The last book was kind of a weird one for me to read. So if you watched my TBR Pursuit Picks, my January TBR, then you would know that one of the books that I had to read that month for one which I believe was for a book out of my comfort zone, I chose the DaVinci Code by Dan Brown, which is just adult fiction. It's not an adult fantasy or anything, it's literally just an adult fiction, which is out of my comfort zone. And I completely devoured this book, and I really want to continue on with this series. I didn't realize that there was technically it was a first book in the series. I think it's just called the Robert Langdon series. I have the third book, I guess, which is The Lost Symbol. I would like to read the first book as well. So if you do not know what the DaVinci Code is about, it is about a guy named Robert Langdon, and he is a Harvard professor. He specializes in symbols and basically the origins of them and how they're used in every single day life. And in the beginning of this book, he is in Paris, and he basically is supposed to meet with the curator of a museum, specifically the Louvre in Paris. And basically in the beginning of this book we find out that the curator is murdered, which is very gruesome, and it was a very gruesome scene to read about. And we get introduced to Sophie Nievu, who is a is that how you say it? I can't remember what they're called. A cryptologist, that is the right term. So cryptologist, so she kind of also deals with symbols, but basically her job is basically to figure out puzzles all day, which that sounds like I want to do that. And they just kind of get thrown into this whole world, and it deals with like the church and all things like that, and it was very action-packed, and I really liked this book a lot, which was weird, and I didn't expect myself to really like this book. And it definitely opened my eyes to the whole just mystery, not like mystery thrillers, but this is probably a really weird way to compare this book, but I've been into a really big Scooby-Doo kind of kick. I love Scooby-Doo. I don't know about anyone else, and so I was really into the series and watching this the episodes when I was reading this, and it really felt like an adult Scooby-Doo, and I felt like I was there with them trying to figure it out. And I really enjoyed this book, and I definitely want to continue on to the series. So this is definitely one that is a little bit more light when it comes to the world, because it takes place in, you know, Paris or wherever the other ones take place, and it's real, not made up like fantasy world, if you will. So I'm really excited to read more of Dan Brown's work in this year and kind of now open up my eyes to the world of adult mystery, because it's really fun. So I'm excited, and hopefully we'll get through this series as well. So that has been all the series that I want to read. Those are just the ones that are on my shelf. There are probably tons more series that I would like to get to, but for now, those are just most of the ones that are on my shelf that I'm most excited to read. Let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of this series, and if you finished it, if you're like me and you're very behind, as well as if you have any other series recommendations that you think that I would like. Let me know down below. I'm also going to be doing a video separately on trilogies, because I have a lot of trilogies that I need to get through as well. So be sure to look out for that video. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos from me in the future. I would really appreciate that. So yeah, I will see you guys next time for another video. Bye.